I've actually taken YKI in both Swedish and in Finnish. Even if you can only say, hyvä huomenta, I'll say things like, let's speak Finnish for 10 minutes.
Hi, Fiona. So where are you from and for how long have you been living in Finland?
Hey, I'm from Canada and I've been living in Finland about 11 years now.
So you passed the YKI test. How long ago?
I did. I've actually taken YKI in both Swedish and in Finnish. And I passed the Swedish YKI tentti, I don't know, maybe 2015 or 16. And I took it, at that time, I took it at the highest level. So I was aiming for a 5 or a 6, which I got. And I took the Finnish YKI just recently, and I took it at the what is it called in English? The middle level, where you get satisfactory ability to read and speak and understand Finnish, I think it is.
Why did you decide to do it in Swedish first and then in Finnish? And how comes that you speak Swedish so well that you're able to pass it at level 5 or 6?
That's a good question. So I live in Helsinki, but when I moved here, I met a lot of Swedish-speaking Finns, and I have a lot of Swedish-speaking friends, and I was going to a Swedish-speaking church. So I learned Swedish quite easily as a native English speaker, and of course I speak some French, being from Canada, and also some German. So Swedish was naturally just a lot easier. Like I think I took maybe 1 or 2 courses. I took a course right before I took the Swedish YKI tentti, and it wasn't like a conscious decision. I just decided that I would. I didn't even decide. I just decided that, or it just happened that I learned Swedish first, and then since I could, I knew my Swedish was a lot better than my Finnish. I just thought, okay, well, if I need to take YKI, then I'll do it in Swedish because I know it'll be easy. I won't have to study at all.
All right. And why then in Finnish later?
Yeah, I needed it for my job. So I work as a cantor, and for a cantor, you need in the language you wish to work in my case, Swedish, you need the test at a level 6, and then you need the other official language of Finland. You need it at a level 3, I think is the minimum that you can get.
I got it. So if for this conversation we concentrate on Finnish, were there any courses that you took to pass the test?
I've taken some Finnish courses throughout my 10 years in Finland. Like I have taken some courses, but they weren't specifically geared towards YKI. They were just general language courses, like Finnish language courses, and it's been quite sporadic. Like, I've taken the courses once a week after work, and of course you're tired, but you go to class, that kind of course. And I've taken one written course, I think, like that was over the internet during COVID. And I've taken also a discussion course. So I've taken different kinds of courses, not specifically geared towards the exam, though.
Could you share a bit more about this discussion course? How did it happen? Was it offline, online? How was it organized?
The discussion course was live, and it was actually in the Helsinki Arvis. So I think the participants were a mix of Swedish speakers and foreigners like myself. And I think it was probably already at a B1 level. And I think it was just once a week, and we came, and the teacher was very good. We had different discussion topics and different articles that we would read and maybe talk about, and we would be either in small groups or with our partners or with the entire group talking about the topics at hand.
It feels a lot like a language cafe, but it was a paid course, right?
Yeah.
I got it. If you remember, were there any books that you were using to prepare for the YKI test or to learn Finnish in general?
I think I used Suomen Mestari 1 and 2. There are other books too, but I don't remember what they are. I'm seeing if I see them on my shelf. Suomi sujuvaksi. That's one.
Yes, I got it. Since you passed 2 language exams, it feels that you have an ability to learn languages, or maybe you have some techniques that you could share with others of how to learn the language faster.
Yeah. Well, I like languages, so even before I moved to Finland, I've always enjoyed learning new languages. I've studied French and Spanish and Italian and German. I think what helps for me is doing a lot of listening. So when I started learning Swedish, for example, like I couldn't speak at all and I didn't take any courses, but I remember other people would just speak around me. And the first thing that I was very open to was that people would speak Swedish and not just speak English. So I was actively listening. And the same thing when I was at home by myself, I would also turn on the TV or go to the internet and look at some whatever you're interested in. Like I was interested in cooking, so I used to watch cooking shows in Swedish. So that was a big thing for me. It's just assimilating or just getting yourself, immersing yourself in the language so you hear it around you. And then with Finnish, I've been more like perhaps concentrated on, because Finnish for me was harder. I've watched, for example, short programs that would have subtitles either in Finnish or actually sometimes in Swedish or in English. So in one of the languages at least, so that I could both follow the written text in Finnish and then also sometimes have a translation to either Finnish or either Swedish or English. So that helps, just being able to like hear the language. I'm a musician, and I often go to a lot of performances and events. So one thing is also reading, like if there's a text that would be written in first English, and then I would read it again in Finnish. Or more commonly in Finland, as we know, it's a bilingual country, I would read a text first in Swedish, and then I would read it again in Finnish. So because I know what it's about now, because I've read it once in Swedish, whatever text. I mean, it could have been the tax rules or whatever, or something about going to Kela. So I would read that first in Swedish because it's a language I understand well, and then I would read it again in Finnish. I mean, of course, you can also probably do it in English. And then I would also go to church, and the same thing there. Like if there was a guest speaker, the sermon might be both in English and in Finnish, or in Swedish and then in Finnish. So whatever the stronger language is, that's of course the help language for me. In whatever situation it was, but then I would also pick up words of whatever the new language was what I'm trying to learn, or target language that you're trying to learn. So those are some of the hints that I learned for just listening. But then I think also that's really important, that's helped me, is I think, and maybe I've had good examples because my mom is also really good at this, is to dare to speak, even if your language, literally your vocabulary and your language box, as I like to call it, is small. Like even if you can only say, hyvä huomenta, that's all you can say. Like even if it's a basic phrase, use those phrases that you know and try to create new phrases. And especially with Swedish, because I didn't study it formally, I would say something and it'd be grammatically wrong. So then somebody might correct me. And then now and then you would have a language teacher around that would actually explain explain why the mistake you made was wrong, so that you could perhaps improve the next time. But as everybody knows, when you're learning languages, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and you're going to make the same mistakes over and over. At least I do. But practice makes perfect. So I would say that like another big tip for me has just been like, I've just found situations, whether it's been, mostly it's easier one-on-one. It's always easier to speak a foreign language with people one-on-one rather than speaking like with 5 people at once or 10 people at once. And it feels very intimidating. But I would always try, and even with my friends nowadays, even though we often speak English, I'll say things like, let's speak Finnish for 10 minutes. And so, if I call somebody, we might speak Finnish for 10 minutes and then we might go over to English because that's what we've always done. But at least I get to speak Finnish for 10 minutes. So I've set kind of boundaries for myself and little goals for myself. And that feels easy because I can have small talk for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's not too like intimidating, and it doesn't feel like it's a burden for the other person either. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the deepest conversation, but at least I practice the language. And then we can, of course, have more serious conversation in a language we're more comfortable with.
Yep.
So those are some hints.
Right. Amazing, amazing information. I loved it, what you said. Also, maybe you could recommend some websites or apps if you used any. For example, where did you watch shows or where did you listen to audio files?
Yeah. I follow a YouTuber who's called Finished with 2 N's. And she does videos. She speaks Finnish in the videos, and they're usually like somewhere between 3 minutes and 10 minutes. It doesn't take up your whole day. And she herself is a language guru and has like kind of implemented a system of language learning which she incorporates in her videos. And she'll talk about a topic, whether it be coffee or sauna or Finnish weddings. And she'll talk about that topic, and she'll write the subtitles in both Finnish and in English. And the point of her method, which has really helped me, is to listen to the same video many, many times. So you listen to it until you can almost say certain parts of the video by memory. And that's how you assimilate the language. So I followed her, for example, and found her really helpful. I've also followed a blogger. There's a website, it's called Random Finnish Lesson. And Random Finnish Lesson, she writes mostly blog topics about Finnish grammar in English. I'll be really honest, I'm not a huge grammar person. Like, some people really need it. And they want to know the exact structure of a language before they begin to say anything at all. Of course it's nice to know that, but that's not been the way I've chosen to learn my languages. I just find it's just easier to speak, and if there's mistakes, there's just mistakes. You learn the grammar as you go. But she does explain a lot of aspects of Finnish grammar and even vocabulary, and she's just really quirky. I like the way she writes. So I've read a lot of her posts, and she also has podcasts. So she'll interview somebody, for example, or just pick a topic and talk about it. And it's just audio, and that works really well as well for me. So those two kind of come right to mind. I've also a little bit gone to Yle. They have this like kielikoulu, and I've sometimes followed those programs. They're just regular Yle programs, but they kind of put them in different language categories depending on how hard they are. I know some people like really use I think they have an entire like set of tools. Like they have like subtitles, and they have like, you can highlight the words you don't know and make vocabulary lists. I've never done that. I guess I'm not such a structured language learner that I've done that, but I will just watch the videos and maybe read the subtitles. So I've done that. But I think for me, what I have done that has helped is I'm quite good at having lists of words, like new words. And sometimes it's in my phone, or sometimes it's in a notebook. And I'll just keep vocabulary lists in whatever language I'm learning. Or I mean, to be honest, even though I did get a really good score in the Swedish YKI test, like 5 and 6, it's mostly 6. But you can always learn more in any language, even in your own native language. So I still have language lists in Swedish, and so I have lists of words, and I'll group them like verbs, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, conjunction words that link things. And I find that especially very helpful when you're first starting to learn a language, because if you only know 5 verbs, you can still go very far with 5 verbs actually, and 5 nouns. You'd be surprised. So I think keeping lists has been really good for me. And it's really easy because, especially if it's in your phone, you just take it out when you're on the bus, and you can easily review like 5 new words, and then make a sentence in your head with those 5 words, or whatever words you're learning, 2 words, even 1 word, and then put it away. And then the next time you're on the bus, do the same thing with either the same 5 words, because it's good to review, or with a new set of 5 words. So I'll play like little games with myself. I've tried Duolingo. I have not found Duolingo works for me, but if it works for other people, that's great. I think it's boring and not entirely very, very pedagogical. I'm a language teacher too. I've been teaching English. But I find that making your own system and making lists, and I think more so even, is finding material that you're interested in. Because whatever I'll necessarily, like, I would read something in English, nowadays I read either in Finnish or Swedish. So for example, like even the news, or if you want to, yeah, if you want to read articles about gardening, let's say that's your hobby, or tennis, instead of reading them in English, I would just turn and read them in Finnish or Swedish. Or I like cooking, like I said, so I'll read recipes and I'll try and find them in Finnish. So to kind of just add the language to your day, but make it fun for you. Like I think that's what's really helped me, because I think I've not been that good at language courses. I to be honest, I find them quite demotivating and quite maybe I'm very busy. I just don't get the motivation to study, and then I feel guilty for not studying and not doing the exercises. But just managing to find, exactly like you said, other websites and other tools, like that makes it so much more enjoyable. So that's what I would say. Sorry, that was a long answer.
It was excellent. Thanks a lot. It was really great. Moving forward, if you remember how your YKI looked like, maybe there is something that you would like others to know that you didn't expect and that was difficult for you. For example, how long it was, things like that.
The day was long. For some reason, the Finnish test was a lot longer than the Swedish test in my memory. I think probably because there's a lot more participants that take Finnish than take Swedish in Helsinki, and so they have to coordinate all those aspects. But I think it depends on the test center as well. I went to quite a large test center. I remember that it didn't feel very organized, to be honest. So especially the Finnish one, that the coordinators didn't always seem to be sure where we were going next. And of course, if they're unsure, then the participants are unsure. And when you're trying to move 50 people and get them at the right place at the right time, and checking all the documentation, that can take a while. So I think be prepared for a certain amount of disorganization, at least in my experience, especially like I said with the Finnish test. I've only taken it once, so it could have been also just that day was an off day for them. I don't know. I also remember, this is a very small detail, but I remember it was really cold. So and like, I mean, I'm not just talking about like a little bit cold, like it was snowing outside. Like inside I was freezing, and I had dressed warm because I knew we'd be sitting for many hours. But I would say dress in layers, and bring, if I could do it again, I would have brought hot water or hot tea in a thermos. And probably also because you're allowed to bring a snack, but the exam can easily be 5 or 6 hours. So you don't have enough time to go out of the test center and buy like a proper warm meal. So, and if it's cold, or if you're already cold like I was, then you feel just kind of cold and hungry. So that would be also my tip would be to bring something warm to drink, especially if you have a tendency to feel cold. Yeah, but that's what I remember.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right. Out of all the 4 parts of the YKI test, what was the most difficult one?
I've always found writing the most difficult in both Finnish and Swedish. But that's just partly because I just don't write that much. And again, maybe because I haven't studied the languages formally as much as maybe other people. But I'll be at the same time, I did very well in both those sections. So it might just be my own feelings that I feel like I don't practice writing more sort of extended formal text. I mean, I write text messages and emails in my daily life, but not so extended text. So that's, for me, that's always been the hardest part. I think the second hardest part is the what do they call it? I think they call it, I'm not sure, but I think the part where it might be under speaking or under listening comprehension, I'm not actually sure, but the part where they often give you quick scenarios and then you have to respond. Like I think in my case, I had to, in the Finnish exam, I had to rent a car in Finnish. But I mean, the renting the car part maybe is okay, but then in the dialogue, you have to respond to if you kind of have to make up a scenario where you're not happy with the car for some reason. In my case, that was what they were asking. And to be very honest, I've never rented a car. I don't drive. And I was like, well, the car is blue. I don't like blue cars. So I was sort of sitting. So I think part of the stress was not even so much I didn't understand. It was not actually the comprehension part. It was more like coming up with a scenario, like a possible thing to complain about within 5 seconds or 10 seconds or however much time you're given. I find that can be quite stressful. So I guess being prepared for it, and I guess maybe this would have helped if I'd taken a preparation course, and I would a little bit know what the exam would be about, or if I'd done any practice exams. I actually didn't do any. So knowing what the test is going to look like, and knowing that you might be in that situation where you have to make up a scenario. Like I remember in one exam I had to go to be calling a theater company and complaining about the quality of a children's play, of which you have to make up again the scenario, the play, the company, the thing you're complaining about. And I just, I didn't know where to start. And you have 20 seconds to plan the thing. So I think things like that, are maybe good to keep in mind and remember. And were a bit nerve-wracking for me.
Yeah, got it. Do you remember what were the topics of your writing part? What did you need to write?
It could be that I'm mixing up the Finnish and Swedish exam I've taken, but I think at one point I've written a letter. Maybe actually for both exams there was a letter. I think one letter that I wrote was to a friend in another country, or a colleague, where you were thanking them for hosting you, so something like that. And again, you come up with the situation and the things that you did during your visit, and things you were thankful for. I've also had a writing task where I had to write to some health authority and complain about some service I got. So yeah, that kind of text. And I think another text I had to write was a job related text that I was writing instructions for my colleague, or somehow corresponding with my colleague, maybe, who was going to be taking over my work for a day or something like that. So they're quite practical, those kinds of written tasks. So for me, I didn't feel that they were so difficult, the actual topics themselves.
Imagine that I'm passing the exam for the first time. What would you tell me? How would you motivate me?
If you're about to take the exam and you're preparing for it.
Yep.
When I have friends that are taking the exam, I tell them to, like, the months before, speak Finnish as much as you can, with everybody you can, whether it's a 2-minute conversation in the coffee shop, or whether you force your colleague to talk Finnish with you for 5 minutes at the coffee table, at the break table. And I would also say, read as much as you can. So grab, whether it's Selkosuomeksi, the easy Finnish text that Yle has, or whether it's a children's book. I read a few children's books, or just regular articles, if you can manage that, on whatever topic that interests you. And listen. So I think those 3 things are the most important. Like, do listening, like, again, to whatever you're interested in. Read as much as you can, and speak as much as you can. I think that's what I'd recommend, because those are active skills, and I mean, they're just useful in general for learning the language, not even just passing the exam.
Right. Yeah. Maybe if I can ask you, do you now speak Finnish in your everyday life?
That's a good question. I don't, to be honest, I don't have that much need to speak Finnish. Unfortunately, I work in Swedish a lot, and I work in English a lot. But when I have to speak Finnish, I do. So I do, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's great. And if I can choose, I probably would speak English. But especially when it's someone I don't know, and especially if the encounter is quite short, like it's some colleague at work I don't have a lot of contact with otherwise. And especially if it's not about something very, very important. I mean, if we're working out a very, very problematic work issue, then of course we speak English, and we speak English quite a lot in my work anyway. But yeah, I would say When it's possible, I do. I know it sounds funny. I live in Helsinki and I don't speak Finnish that much, but yeah, I try.
Do you have any plans to learn it even further, or that's like you're satisfied with the YKI test and that's it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I mean, I was even thinking I could, it's funny you asked, I was even thinking I could look for a summer course. Um, I think partly because, like I said, my life situation is I work in mostly in Swedish and also in English. So if I want to learn Finnish more, it's I have to make an effort. But yeah, no, I believe very strongly in learning languages. And like I said, I like learning languages. So I'm also very, very busy. I'm both studying and working. So I think Finnish often gets put on the back burner. Um, but I absolutely like I keep listening, like even this morning I listened to something in Finnish. Like I try even if it's 5 minutes a day, if that's all the time I have, like I'll try and read something or try to listen to something, or incorporate Finnish into my life. So I mean in my case it's gone quite slowly. Like I mean, I've lived here 10 years. I should frankly, speak Finnish a lot better than I do. But yeah, I think that it's a tool into integrating in the society, even though I speak fluent Swedish, and I think it's fun. Like I actually like learning languages. So yes, definitely.
Thanks for your time, for all the answers. Thanks a lot.